I woke up half naked in a jungle that smelled like wet cinnamon and ozone, blinking sunlight out of my eyes while birds that looked like feathered snakes screamed from the trees. My escape pod was wrecked, split down the middle like a cracked egg, wires sparking and beeping one last pathetic cry for help before giving up. I was alive, barely clothed, and surrounded by foliage that came up to my waist. And then the spears came. 3-foot women in bronze armor, all muscle and attitude, popped out of the underbrush like angry, heavily armed pixies. Their skin was lavender, their hair braided with beads, and every single one looked like she was deciding whether to gut me or keep me as a pet. I raised my hands, said something stupid like, "Hey, I come in peace," and was promptly jabbed in the thigh with a stick that buzzed like a taser. When I came to, I was tied to a stone column with vines. Not ropes. Vines. And they were humming. I don't know what they were infused with, but my entire body felt like it was being gently massaged by bees. Across from me stood a very small, very serious alien with a tiara and a stare that could melt steel. She stepped forward with regal precision, hands clasped behind her back. "You have the scent of thunder. The stride of a predator. The posture of prophecy." I blinked. "Lady, I just fell out of the sky in my underwear." She didn't flinch. "You are the missing king of Jaxel." "My king! You have returned to be mounted and ridden into glory." "Excuse me? The ritual of bonding is overdue by 12 cycles. The saddle awaits. I have trained since hatchlinghood to straddle your spine and lead our armies. I think there's been a mistake." The crowd of aliens around us began to cheer. Somewhere, a horn blew. Someone smeared red paint across my chest in a very ceremonial, very invasive motion. A smaller alien presented me with what looked like a metallic diaper. The princess lifted her chin. "Crown him." "No, no, no, I'm not king of anything. I'm just a cargo technician with a caffeine addiction and a bad sense of direction." But they weren't listening. The crown, a silver circlet no bigger than a bracelet, was plopped on my head, where it promptly tilted sideways and buzzed like an electric shaver. I smelled lavender and ozone again. A shiver ran down my spine. A voice, maybe in my head, maybe not, whispered, "The rider has chosen her beast." "What does that mean?" I muttered. Princess Zinta, as she later introduced herself, grinned. "It means the throne has legs again." A ceremonial platform was carried out. I was lifted onto it, then lowered, face down, so Zinta could climb on my back, knees gripping my sides. I could feel her tiny weight and the uncomfortable press of armor against my spine. "Forward!" she yelled. Someone slapped my ass. I lurched forward, tripping off the platform, face first into dirt, while Zinta rode me like a pony through a cheering crowd. She held her arms high like she'd won a battle. My knees scraped over stone and vines. Somewhere in the madness I gasped. "You're all insane." She leaned down and whispered in my ear. "You are the Mount of Destiny. You will carry my glory. And possibly my eggs." I blacked out again. When I came to, I was lying on a bed of moss inside a golden tent. Zinta sat beside me, polishing a curved dagger and humming. "I don't think I'm qualified for any of this," I said weakly. "You are strong. Tall. Muscled in the thighs. The gods marked your arrival by tearing open the sky and setting fire to the trees. You landed on sacred soil. It is a sign. It was a malfunctioning fuel tank." She ignored me, stood, and pulled a scroll from a nearby pillow. "The prophecy says when the king returns, he shall be ridden until the stars cry his name." "Okay, but maybe the stars can wait until I get pants." Zinta smiled. "First comes the trial of endurance. Then the feast of coupling. And then," her voice lowered to a purr, "the ceremonial thrust." I groaned. "I really should have stayed on the ship." "You no longer belong to the stars," she said, placing her hand on my chest. "You belong to me." Another horn blew in the distance. The vines at the tent's entrance parted. A parade was forming. I could hear the chant. "King Beast! King Beast!" Zinta licked her lips. Time for your first ride. I covered my face. This is not how I thought my day would go. Then adjust, my king, she said. You have a kingdom to carry. I tried to run. Made it about 12 steps before I was tripped by a vine that curled around my ankle like it had a grudge. I face-planted into moss, groaned, and found myself staring into the bright eyes of a child-sized alien guard who looked way too excited to see me struggle. Trying to flee before your first mount? Bold. Stupid but bold, she said, tapping a stick against her palm. 2 more guards hauled me upright and shoved me back toward the central courtyard. There, Princess Zinta stood waiting in a new outfit, tight leather straps and glimmering blue feathers, and held a staff twice her height. She looked me up and down like a farmer inspecting a stubborn mule. You're early for training. Good. We begin now. I didn't agree to this. You were chosen. Agreement is irrelevant. Posture, however, is not. What followed was a training montage, in the loosest sense. I was given a bizarre suit of armor that barely covered anything, mostly shoulder guards, a loincloth, and something that could only be described as a ceremonial groin plate with her face on it. Zinta climbed onto my back again without warning, jabbing her heels into my sides. Balance, king! Do not wobble. Your spine is my throne. I demand stability. I demand ibuprofen. I muttered, staggering forward. We marched through the village like a parade of one. She barked orders from above, mostly to me. Turn left. No, lefter. Shoulders straight. Hips loose. Hips loose? Throne rides must be smooth. If I bounce, I bruise. She used every opportunity to correct my posture with a tap, a tug, or a slap. Apparently, kings on this planet needed thighs like stone and backs like steel. I had neither. Yet. Later, she led me to the training ring, an arena surrounded by more of her warrior clan, all chanting, all holding up strange banners with depictions of me. Or at least someone tall and confused with a stick-figure princess on his back. I wasn't sure if it was flattering or mockery. In the ring, I was forced to crawl, sprint, and stand while Zinta shifted her weight in increasingly awkward ways. She practiced positioning. Sometimes she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around my neck, whispering nonsense like, "Harness the beast within." And sometimes she leaned back with her arms outstretched like she was flying. The worst part was when she asked for the royal gallop. I'm not doing that. You will. Or I'll inform the elders that you spilled your royal seed prematurely when the vines touched you. That wasn't the gallop, king. So I galloped. Badly. My knees screamed. My pride limped behind me, waving a white flag. The aliens around the ring howled with laughter, but Zinta nodded with satisfaction. See? Already learning to obey. My sisters will be jealous. We collapsed back into the tent at dusk. I was sweating through every pore. She looked like she just left a spa. You'll improve, she said, stretching out beside a tray of fruit. Your center of gravity is untrained. You're breathing erratic. But your hips show promise. Are you trying to compliment me or size me for a saddle? Yes. She offered me something that looked like a grape, but crunched like a carrot when I bit into it. I chewed warily. You mentioned something about a saddle earlier. Is that metaphorical? Zinta raised an eyebrow. The saddle is sacred. Passed down from queen to queen. It molds to the king's back, absorbs his scent, and retains his heat. Why would that be metaphor? I set the fruit down. She picked up a brush and began oiling the feathers in her hair. Tomorrow we test the climb. You will scale the pillar of proof while I ride. The pillar has bested many. But I believe in your thighs. Great. If you fail, you'll be stripped of the title. Also the loincloth. Fantastic. And executed. I stared. She grinned. Kidding. Pause. Mostly. That night, I lay on a woven mat that was surprisingly comfortable for something made of leaves and bones. Zinta curled up next to me without warning, pressing her cold feet against my shin. I do not understand humans. she murmured into my chest. Neither do I. But your back is strong. And you didn't die during the trial of balance. That's more than the last suitor. What happened to him? She paused. We buried him with honor. I stayed very, very still. Zinta's hand slipped across my stomach. You will do well. Once you learn to let go. Let go of what? Your dignity. Your doubt. Your resistance. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Your reins. She was asleep a moment later. I stared at the ceiling, fully aware that tomorrow, I'd be ridden up a sacred column by a 3-foot princess in heat with political ambitions and a questionable grasp on metaphor. And for some reason, part of me didn't mind. The next morning started with a slap. Not a metaphorical slap. Not a figurative one. A literal, palm to cheek. Rise, my king! Slap from Zinta as she stood over me in what I could only describe as ceremonial lingerie with armor accents. She looked ready for either war or mating season. Possibly both. The time has come, she said. For the royal bonding. No coffee first? I croaked. You will need full strength. Bonding drains the essence. That's not encouraging. She guided me to the ceremonial chamber, which was just a circular platform surrounded by torches and an alarming number of onlookers. I was handed a goblet of something that smelled like motor oil and tasted like spicy regret. My head immediately felt light. Zinta stepped onto the platform, raised her hands, and announced, This is the night the stars witness our convergence. The king returns to be ridden not just into battle, but into legacy. The crowd cheered. Someone threw petals. I stood there in my loincloth and panic. She turned to me. Remove your crown. I hesitated. Just the crown? For now. She stepped close, placed a small clawed hand on my chest, and pushed. I sat. She straddled my thighs, eyes locked with mine, posture regal. Our culture values symmetry. There must be rhythm, resistance, surrender, and sync. Are you ready to match my rhythm, human? I was a mediocre dancer at best. I will lead. The ritual began. She started with a chant, one that vibrated in my bones. Her body swayed against mine in a pattern that was spiritual, sensual, and uncomfortably arousing considering the audience. Every motion she made seemed calculated to test my ability to remain composed. I failed almost immediately. Then came the recitations. She whispered ancient vows while sitting in my lap, her breath hot against my neck, her fingers tracing symbols on my chest with what I hoped was oil and not sap. The words translated poorly. I vow to ride you until your breath sings. I vow to bear your burdens between my thighs. I vow to plant the flag of our unity deep within your earth. It was like alien wedding vows written by a very horny poet. No, she said. Prepare for the final act, the public witnessing. What now? Before I could object, a curtain dropped. Standing behind it were 3 elders, stone-faced and holding scrolls. One of them raised an eyebrow at me, then nodded in approval. They will observe the energy alignment, Zinta explained, shifting her weight. You must stay upright. This is a violation of personal space, physiology, and possibly interstellar law. Then make history, my king. She leaned in. I tried to hold still, but every move she made was deliberate, pressing buttons I didn't know I had. The ritual was designed to make spiritual essence, she said. Our species called it resonance. My species might have called it foreplay. She ground her hips in circles that had nothing to do with energy, and my body answered without permission. An elder coughed. I died inside. The platform began to glow beneath us. Symbols lit up. My spine tingled. Either the bonding was working or I was having a stroke. She gasped, sat upright, and threw her head back. He vibrates true, she shouted. I do not. I objected, lying. The glow intensified. My hands gripped the sides of the platform to keep from collapsing. Zinta grinned, riding the pulses of light like a symphony. Her hair lifted in an unseen wind. I was certain I looked like a man trying not to sneeze during an opera. Then the rival princess arrived. A taller one, still only about waist-high, stomped forward with a war cry and 2 daggers. Her eyes narrowed on me. You bonded with this beanpole? Zinta turned her head, nostrils flaring. He is my king. He is untested. Unworthy. Let us see if his stamina is more than ceremonial. I tried to stand. They both pushed me down. Zinta hissed. The ritual is not yet complete. Then let us finish it, with battle. To my horror, they both climbed onto me. One on each shoulder, like deranged gymnasts fighting over a jungle gym. I became the battleground for the most aggressive pillow fight in the galaxy. They bit, slapped, pulled hair, shouted battle cries like, I saw him first! And, his groin plate is tilted toward me! I tried to dismount both. Failed. Eventually, Zinta stood tall on my back and yelled, Enough! He is mine by fall, by fate, by friction! The rival hesitated. Then, in front of the elders and audience, she asked, Prove it! Without waiting for my input, Zinta reached down, grabbed my chin, and kissed me full on the mouth. Fireworks, not metaphorical, exploded from the ceremonial spire. The ground vibrated. My blood boiled in a way that was either love, lust, or ritual poisoning. When she pulled away, the platform blazed with light, etching our silhouettes into the stone. The rival slumped, defeated. The elders chanted. Zinta whispered in my ear, The throne accepts you. I collapsed backward, dazed, breathless, and still glowing faintly in places no man should. Is it over? I gasped. For now, she said, licking her lips. But tomorrow begins the practice of nesting. I want to go home. You are home, my king. And she curled against my side like a satisfied cat who just conquered a very large scratching post. You. I woke to the sound of ceremonial drums and the soft weight of Zinta curled across my chest. Her fingers were already tracing symbols on my skin again, like she'd spent the night memorizing the geography of my body. I groaned. Every muscle ached, including ones I didn't know I had. Apparently being the chosen king of a 3-foot warrior race meant never getting a full night's rest or personal space again. The nesting begins today, she said without preamble. Our bodies must synchronize for the trials. We already synchronized. I saw stars. I might have been the star. That was only the resonance phase. Nesting is preparation for union, a practice of closeness. Physical proximity. Temperature regulation. Shared breath. And mutual vulnerability. You mean cuddling? If you disrespect the ancient rites with that word again, I'll make you carry the eggstone up the mountain. I shut up. The eggstone, as it turned out, was a perfectly smooth boulder roughly the size of a microwave and 3 times as dense. Zinta insisted I carry it strapped to my back while she rode on top, giving instructions and critiques about my posture and breath control. It was training, she said. For fertility posture. I didn't even ask. We reached a cliffside alcove shaped like a heart. Not symbolically, a literal, anatomically accurate heart carved into rock. There, she arranged our bedding, moss, feathers, and heated stones soaked in scented oils. She pressed one of the stones to my back. I nearly yelped. It stimulates your lower muscles, she explained, eyes gleaming. We must prepare your hips. In the old tongue, this is called rising the mountain from beneath. I think my mountain just herniated. The next hour involved deep stretches, joint rotations, and repeated squats while Zinta sat cross-legged in front of me, evaluating everything like a personal trainer who also might try to ride me if I slacked off. She adjusted my stance with her feet, poked my abs with a stick when I slouched, and made deeply unsettling comments like, Yes, your seed aura blooms from your core. Eventually, she declared me passable, and motioned for me to lie down. She climbed on top, curled herself against my chest, and closed her eyes. Now we share stillness. No speaking. No movement. I was about to protest when she pressed a finger against my lips. Stillness. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. The world outside the alcove went quiet. Her breathing slowed. Mine matched hers without realizing it. The heat from the stones, the pressure of her tiny body molded against mine, the scent of oils, it all blurred. I stopped thinking. For a moment there was just peace. Then her hand slid lower. Zinta. Stillness includes exploration. That's not how stillness works. On Jaxil it is. This is sacred. Her fingers continued their exploration, grazing the edge of my groin plate, tapping it like she was testing fruit for ripeness. Your body responds well to ritual. It responds well to a lot of things, I muttered. She tilted her head. You joke. That means comfort. Comfort leads to acceptance. Acceptance to readiness. Readiness to mating. Is this still the nesting phase? We are at the end of nesting. Soon begins the trial of merging. But first, the clutch bath. I blinked. You want me to bathe with eggs? No. I want you to bathe as the egg. You are the clutch. I must bathe you. It is symbolic. She led me to a steaming pool, undressed me with a reverence that felt halfway between worship and scientific examination, then poured viscous blue oil down my spine while murmuring words I didn't understand but deeply distrusted. She bathed me like a cherished relic, scrubbing muscles, tracing scars, and occasionally biting my shoulder to mark your boundary lines. I had no idea what that meant, but I wasn't in a position to argue. The pool started glowing. My body tingled. My skin smelled like wildflowers and lightning. She cupped my face, leaned in close. Now you're soft enough for shaping. Shaping? My body molds to yours. My biology responds to shared breath, proximity, and exposure. If we are compatible, I will release the pheromone of readiness. Then, and only then, can the merging occur. Her eyes locked on mine. Her breath hitched. She touched my chest, right over my heart, and whispered something in her language that made my skin shiver. Then she sneezed. We both froze. That's not supposed to happen, she said quietly. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. Zinta glared, then burst out laughing too. Your aura tickled my inner nose coil. I don't know what that is, but I'm oddly honored. She climbed out of the bath, tossed me a towel, and said, Tonight we test the merge. Until then, you will rest. And avoid any contact with rival suitors. There are still rival suitors? Always. But none brave enough to face the egg shaping. Later, back in the heart-shaped alcove, she fed me fruit from her fingers and curled in my lap like I was a throne. Her mood was calmer now, almost tender. You understand us better than I expected, she murmured. You're easier to understand than most people think. You carry me with honor. You ride me with pride. Her lips curled. Then you are truly becoming king. I kissed her forehead. Only if you keep teaching me how not to die from cultural misunderstandings. Deal. She leaned against my chest, hand on my heart again, listening. Soon we merge. And when we do, nothing will be able to separate us. Not tribe. Not war. Not even species. That's a big promise. She nodded. That's love. Alien or not.